Good morning, everyone. I'm so excited to be with you here today on our final day of Engage OK in the Cloud. I hope that you have been enjoying this virtual conference and have been checking out some of the recording sessions if you were unable to attend those sessions. Welcome to the ICAP Service Learning versus Work-Based Learning session. And my name is Chelsea Hunt. I am the Executive Director of Work-Based Learning and Industry Engagement at the State Department. Before we begin, just sharing some more housekeeping items with you. As Jamie mentioned, this session is being recorded, so please ensure that your microphone is muted throughout the session. Also, since it's being recorded, any questions that you input into the Zoom chat today, please input your email as well. That way, if we run out of time or it's limited, I can certainly address those at a later date. Also, if you are using the Whova app today, I will personally address your questions later after this conference, so please know that I will get to you. Lastly, we are doing some interactive activities in this session, so please go ahead and have menti.com ready on your phone or your browser to participate. For today's agenda, we're going to really talk about what's the difference between service learning and work-based learning. What are some sample activities that correlate with those types of experiences? We'll also touch base on what do students gain from participation in these types of experiences, and then how do we document their progress to ensure that they're on track for graduation. We will also talk about virtual career learning, especially in the times that we're in. So give you some guidance and some resources and just some ideas of what you can do if we have to transition back into a virtual space this upcoming school year. We'll also talk about engaging partnerships, some best practices from various districts ranging from rural to suburban to urban, and then a plethora of resources, again, that you can use in the classroom or that you can use online. And then we will end with a Q&A question. So I will answer all the questions since this is being recorded during that Q&A session. So again, we will address as we are able. All right, so let's begin. When it comes to the ICAP requirement for service or work-based learning, our students must complete and record at least one of those activities between 9th grade and graduation. And also throughout this session, you'll see various hyperlinks. So the PDF presentation was dropped into the chat earlier. So you're able to click on those and get direct access to all of those links. This chart reflects Oklahoma's workforce skills gap and why ICAP, individual career academic planning, is so important. If you haven't seen this graph before, it's basically telling us that in 2028, and in order for our students to be workforce ready, employable, they will need to have a post-secondary certification or degree. Okay, now I want to hear from you all. If you'll grab your phone or your browser and go to menti.com and enter code 124205. You can also use the QR code. If you don't have a QR app, you can use your camera and just scan that code and it'll get you there as well. So various ways to get there. The first question that we're responding to today is, what do you already know about service or work-based learning? And in a few minutes, we're gonna go and see your responses in real time. Okay, I see a mixture between a little knowledge to none at all. Internships, service projects, each industry business partner is unique, like our students. Oh, I love that. What different needs and expectations? Very good. You only have to have one experience for ICAP, okay? Part-time, full-time, volunteer work, very nice. Nothing, and I have a rising sophomore, so I teach 7th grade. So hopefully you will get some wonderful pointers here in this session. So if you feel like you have limited knowledge, I hope you walk away today with at least some knowledge gained. Okay, it's valuable to help students discover their interests. Yes, it is. Okay, so we have a good mixture. Thank you for participating in that. Again, we'll have some more activities throughout this session, but we're off to a great start. And this helps me gauge what I need to share with you guys today. All right, back to the PowerPoint. Now we're going to talk about what is the difference when it comes to service versus work-based learning. Service learning gives our students the opportunity to participate in organized service projects that meet actual community needs. These experiences are usually coordinated in collaboration with the local school district and community organizations. There are 4 types of service learning. The first is advocacy. And advocacy, this is where our students create, they educate, or increase public awareness on a topic that impacts the community at large. So an example of this type of activity would be students creating a marketing strategy for a public health campaign. And then during the times of COVID-19, that is so relevant at this time. The second type is direct. Indirect is when students, in the direct activity, and you'll see why I said that in just one second. This part of work-based learning is really focused on face-to-face involvement with the service projects that directly impact those individuals receiving the service. So this is where students are able to, let's say, participate in a coat or clothing drive and give it to a homeless shelter. So that would be something of a direct activity. So now talking about an indirect activity, this is where students are able to help the community in a broader way. So when I say broader, it would be more like if students are participating in a beautification or a community gardening. So it serves a whole range of those in the community. And then our fourth and final type is research-based. And this is where I'm a technical person, so I love the research-based aspect. But this is where students find, collect, and they're analyzing the data that meets a community need. So for example, we would say this is when a student would research both state and national laws, let's say on cyberbullying, and then they would share it with their local school or maybe even share it in their newspaper. So that would be an example of research-based. Now, let's talk about work-based learning, which allows students to participate in real-world opportunities connected to their career interests. It builds upon classroom skills and practical knowledge and develops readiness for work. So there really are 7 types of work-based learning. The 7th type is virtual career learning, and we'll address that later on in the session. But before I get started on really talking about it in a perspective of middle school and high school, I want to take a moment for any of my elementary educators to talk about it in that framework. So when we're talking about work-based learning in that regard, this would be like if you host a career day at your school and you have your elementary kiddos dress up in the career that they want to be one day. This is also a great time to involve parent involvement, parent and family involvement. Have them come and speak to your classes and share with your class what careers that they are in. Why did they choose that career pathway? Did they have to get a career tech certification or a college degree? You know, have that conversation. What were they scared of? And so that's relatable. If we transition into a virtual environment, I really could see you having various individuals, industry leaders, read to your students. So that would be one way to invite them into your classrooms, especially if whatever platform that you may be using in that regard. And another thing is, I was thinking about this last night and I thought it would be so great, especially for elementary, if in your lesson plans, we have 6 career fields. So if you focused on 6 career fields, one each month, you would already have 6 months in your lesson plans focus. So let's say we focus on the career field of human services. And we really want our students to explore what are human services roles. And this not only would help build our teacher pipeline as well. So have the kiddos look in their home or look and go on a scavenger hunt outside and just kind of find resources that connect to enhancing various industries or career fields in the area of human service. So that's an example. If you're doing agriculture, that's another one. You could actually have your elementary students do maybe a community garden. So if you're thinking in that perspective, this is the time, I know maybe not this year, but another year, when those school lists are going out and you go to Walmart and your kiddos are checking off what they need for the classroom, you could add on maybe potting soil, but make sure you inform your families and parents so that they know what this is going to. And then of course, Play-Doh. What kid doesn't love Play-Doh or popsicle sticks? There's so many tools and instruments that you could utilize. And I believe in elementary, you call it your purposeful play. So there's so many things you can do in that regards. So I just want to address the elementary perspective. Now transitioning to middle school and high school, when it comes to work-based learning, we talk about apprenticeships. This can be either youth apprenticeships or registered apprenticeships. And I'm going to show you later today a new tool where you can help find some registered internships and apprenticeships, in your area. Another goal or opportunity for work-based learning is student internships. In the state of Oklahoma, if you're familiar with our House Bill 2535, that has made it some provisions for school districts if they want to have an internship program, apprenticeship program, or a mentorship program. It's really called the Ames Act of 2016. So what we have done at the State Department is we have created course codes that you're able to use for your juniors and your seniors for an elective course. This can be used for the first or second semester. The course codes for the juniors is 2790, and that's internship 1. Course code for your seniors is 2791, internships 2. And Jamie's about to drop in the chat our internship FAQ so you can get even more guidance on what this is. I do want to say if you are thinking about structuring an internship program, just to be mindful that it has to align with your district policy. So how that looks in your classroom is going to look different for each school district. But as long as you're correlating and aligning it again to your district policy, you should be good to go. And I will be sharing some resources from various school districts who have already implemented internship programs. So if that is one opportunity you'd like to do in your classroom for work-based learning, you'll have some good real-world perspective. And then our third type of work-based learning is mentorships. So mentorships is basically where you have a champion for your student, someone who is pouring into them and telling them, yes, I can. I really love mentorships because I think about when I was in high school, specifically my senior year, I participated in my school district. So shout out to UConn Public Schools. They have a mentorship program called Terry's Kids. And this is where high school students are able to mentor elementary age school students. And so I had a 5th grade student. Her name was Hillary. So you already can see how much I had a connection with her. And that was really more of the one-on-one. I did things like AR reading with her, some math applications. The second one, school setting type I had was a 2nd grade class. And so for all of my elementary educators, man, I just give you a round of applause because the kiddos are cute, but they have no filters and they'll say anything and they just keep you all smiles and on your toes all the time. But what I got to do with that 2nd grade class, I was kind of more like the teacher's assistant. So made sure when we went into the hallway or we were walking from class to class, they were in that wonderful straight line. And then I would have more one-on-one with them. I'd sit in the cafeteria and then we'd go over maybe something that they were reading or whatever lesson plan the teacher had for the day. And then my third type of mentorship I had was actually with a 3rd/4th grade speech therapy class. So I really got a whole well-rounded perspective on a school setting. And to be honest with you, it was kind of like full circle for me because I actually was one of those students who was in a speech therapy class, actually in that same class with that same teacher. So I had more of a connection with those students. I think they gravitated to my heart. I was asking my mom just to remind me, what was it that I couldn't say or articulate pretty well? And she was like, oh my gosh, your R's, your R's. And I was like, okay. And she's like, rabbit. You couldn't say rabbit. And I was like, okay, mom, what did I say? Did I say like Abbott? And we had a good little chuckle, but I was one of those students that I would get teased for how I would articulate my words. But I had amazing mentors along with that speech therapy class to help sharpen me. So I think when we talk about mentorships, that's what you're doing for our students. You're sharpening them. You're telling them that this certain thing doesn't define them. They will be successful when they grow up or in whatever they do. So I'm a firm believer, not only in work-based learning, but really in mentorships. Okay. Our next types of work-based learning, the fourth type is job shadowing. So job shadowing really is when our students have a day in the life. They're able to just, maybe they're interested in, they're more creative. So they're interested in some architect and they want to go see an architect industry leader and really see what do they do in the life. How does that math application and that reading and arithmetic that we're teaching our students, how does that apply in those real world settings? So job shadowing is really good. I was able to do a job shadow when I was younger. I thought I wanted to be a microbiologist. And so doing those cultures and everything, I even took microbiology in undergrad. And it came to a time where I remember my professor said, okay, we're gonna make some yogurt today and you're gonna eat it. And I'm not gonna lie, I said, oh, I'm done with microbiology, but thank you so much. But at least I had those experiences to see. Now, granted, I had those experiences when I was an undergrad. That's why I love ICAP, because it allows our students to have the experiences of service and work-based learning before they graduate high school, so they can have more of a, without a shadow of a doubt, knowing what career path they want to take, whether that's career tech, a 2 or 4 year college, university, going into the military, or even if they're going straight into the workforce, they'll know and be ready for it. The fifth type of work-based learning, that's what we call project-based learning. And I really love project-based learning because it gets that hands-on experience. For many of our students, they're actually getting exposed to project-based learning, especially if they're taking a career tech course or program, if they're taking, maybe participating in a STEM or summer academy, they're getting that project-based learning. And then our sixth type is career fairs. And career fairs just, oh man, they give our students exposure to what careers, especially in Oklahoma, they have. So there's plenty of ways to participate in a career fair. You can have a guest speaker come to your classroom. You can have your students interview career experts, and they can even participate in virtual career fairs, whether that be Oklahoma Career Exposure Week, which I'll highlight a little bit later on. But I did want to share with you an opportunity that's coming up this December 2020 for like our winter intercession. The Central Oklahoma Workforce Investment Board is having what is called Insta Expo, Inspire Next Steps to Adulthood. Now, they actually had this as an in-person event, but COVID just threw things all out of whack. But gratefully, they're able to offer this in a virtual environment. So more students, high school students, are going to get that exposure to industry leaders and Q&A sessions and learn about apprenticeship opportunities. So that's all the details I have, but I do have a contact information for you. Her name is Yolanda Scott, and she's at the COWIB. And so Jamie's going to drop in her email into the chat. That way, if you want to get in touch with her, you're able to find more about this upcoming event. Okay, so we've talked about what is service and work-based learning. Now let's talk about, what do our students gain? What do they learn from participation in these types of experiences? So the following they're actually a sample student learning outcomes for service and work-based learning. You'll see sample essential questions that you can ask your students. Of course, this is just giving you a jump start. There's so many questions you can ask. But we used the Bloom's taxonomy model and we kind of shifted it into a workforce readiness framework to kind of give you an idea of what this looks like. So the bottom level is remember. And in that level, if hopefully you're familiar with Bloom's taxonomy, that's where our students are able to recall basic concepts when it comes to what are the industry needs and demand. And then the next level up is understand. So this is where our students identify concepts that are in that real world setting. Then we go into the third level, which is apply. Oh, apply is more like that implementation. What have our students learned? What have they gained academically, and how are they using that and applying it in application for those real world settings? And then we go to the analyze level, and that's that more critical thinking, logical reasoning. We're sharpening what we call those employability skills, which can also be termed soft skills, hard skills, professional behavior. So there's a plethora of terminologies for that. And then we get to our top two levels. Elevate first, and that's where students are able to critique their experience and lessons learned. Did I like this experience? Did I gain from it what I needed to gain from it? Is this an experience that's tied to my career path, or I just don't want to do it anymore? So that critiquing aspect. And then we end with the top level, which is create. That's when you see that tangible product being formed. So you can really put that in perspective of that hands-on approach of project-based learning. Okay, so how do our students and how do we really help document their progress to make sure they're on track for graduation when it comes to service or work-based learning? Just some pointers. I always say to think outside the box, but I wanted today to dive deeper into what that could look like. So the first one is have your students write a 1 to 2 page reflection paper. And let's get really specific. Instead of a student saying, I went to a hospital, I shadowed a nurse, and it wasn't great. Let's expound upon that and challenge our students to say, write about the real experience. I went to Mercy Hospital. I was able to shadow a pediatric nurse. And I didn't really like it because it was a little slow pace for me. I'm really thinking about being a trauma nurse and really explain why. So that's the reflection in that kind of form. You can actually use a survey, or if you use Google Classrooms, you can use a Google form. If you just kind of don't know where to start, we've actually created a work reflection template so you can utilize that as well. Now, I'm a creative person, so this next line is, I love it. You can have students create a video or a skit, and they can perform this or show it in the classroom, or do it even maybe over a Zoom chat, however platform we might have to have. And then the last but definitely not least is have your students, they can complete a reflective journal or a blog. And I would recommend starting in 9th grade and have them complete one each year until graduation, so they can look back and see, okay, has my knowledge on this expanded? Has it remained the same, or has it changed? And then I would even say this is something you could incorporate maybe in your English class or a history class, or something where they're going to journal and keep that record. So once students have completed their tangible reflection documents, they can upload them as a PDF format in OK College Start or OK Career Guide. So our students' electronic portfolios, or whichever one your school district may use. Those are the 2 free resources. If you attended Petra Woodard's academic counseling session, you got to hear her explain in depth the high school graduation checklist and how you can use that. So if you didn't get a chance to attend it, I highly recommend you watch that recording because that is a way that you as educators and for students to be able to I'm a checklist girl, that's how I learn. So they can really checklist and make sure they're on that path. So those are really good resources. And then an update if you hadn't heard, the class of 2024 college prep ready / work ready and core curriculum high school graduation checklists are now online. So that link will get you directly to them. Okay, so now it's time to talk about that 7th work-based learning. virtual career learning. And so I wanted to start this section off really with one of my favorite quotes. It says, "Tell me and I forget, teach me and I remember, involve me and I learn." These are the types of experiences, both service and work-based learning, that involve our students to not only learn in the classrooms, yet to give back to our communities and learn skills that are necessary for them to be successful in the workplace. So exciting news. If you were able to join Susan Pinson's session on OK Edge, the virtual online learning community, she showed you how to navigate our learning modules, our professional learning modules, that is. And we have actually created one focused on work-based learning so that you can utilize with your schools, especially in the times of COVID, in case we transition to a virtual environment once again. We wanted to ensure that you had access to this wonderful learning module to utilize and find a plethora of resources. So we're actually going to go to it so you can see it for the first time, what it looks like. So give us one moment as we transition. So you'll see the main frame, and mine will look a little different, but you'll find work-based learning. It's now searchable in the catalog, so you can find it, or on the next slide, I will show you a redemption code for it. So once we scroll down and find the work-based learning module, we're gonna click it and select it. So once we get into this module, it really begins with how kind of all of our modules begin with a welcome section that talks about the online learning community. So you can kind of see what the platform is about, how to navigate it, what's our user statement, and even watch some videos in that regard. And as it's going, sometimes, you know, you have tech things, so I'll tell you from memory. The next section is that getting started section. So what we've done is we've created a pre-quiz and a post-quiz for your students to really gauge their knowledge on work-based learning. And then after they've gone through some of the required components of this module, they can take the follow-up quiz and kind of see what have they learned from that. After that is, what is work-based learning? In this section, you're really going to learn about what is work-based learning, so some of the stuff I talk about today, and then why workforce development is so important. So now we'll transition over to the next section, which is exercises and other learning activities. And sorry that you're not able to see it, but you have the link, so you'll be able to see that as we go. I see that we're buffering a little bit, but we live in a world of technology, so it happens. So the sample activity section, this is kind of those sample activities I touch base on between the what's the difference section of this session. So you have that document. We actually created a document for you for more guidance and breaking it down even more intensively. And then the building knowledge and action in the workplace. This is a good section to see what local school districts are doing and hearing from their perspectives and their students. This is another way. We're big on best practices, and we'll get to that section. So this is another way. If you want to highlight and brag on your school and you have a YouTube link and you're doing great things, maybe it's a career fair, an internship program, a mentorship program, one of those 7 types of work-based learning that I've talked about, please send them my way and I will be happy to add them here into the platform so that other educators have the same resources as well. So then we go to the career skills. And in this section, really wanted to focus on making sure our students had that employability skills assessment, kind of so they can go through and work through that. And then also the Oklahoma Disability Employment Policy Department was able to create what they call the soft skills videos. So I like the videos because they show what to do and what not to do. So that's there for you as well. In the virtual career profile section, this is really honing in on those 6 career fields and expounding even more what students can experience. But what we did, I didn't want to get too much of you reading a lot, so we gave you so many videos. And then we actually already have learning modules for each of these career fields. We gave you redemption codes so that your students can get access to those actual modules. Proceeding down into the virtual career opportunities, this is where we talk about Career Exposure Week, the one that we just did in 2020. I'll have a slide moving forward that shows you all the school districts that were able to participate in that event. And I loved it because we had so many different rural school districts that were able to have their students talk one-on-one with a virtual industry leader. So once we do have it ready for 2021 or whatever year it will be, this is where you'll go to sign up, find those Zoom links, and have access. And then we close this module with the next steps section. So what's next? How do we start engaging those industry partnerships? What are the benefits for both students and educators, and also the benefits for employers? And then again, we end with that test your knowledge, and we're able to just see what have they gained from it. The one thing I didn't highlight in this platform is a section on resources, and we're very strategic about putting resources there that that have access to like virtual field trips, virtual mentorships, just virtual videos from various companies, so that if you transition or if we have to transition, you have that right there readily. And some of them have curriculum, and all of those, majority of them, actually all of them, are free for you to use and access. So just wanted you to see the new module and have access to it. So when I talk about access, how do you really actually get to join this module? Well, let me tell you. You just make a profile on OSDE Connect. You would choose your add button, and you can find work-based learning. And then again, it's already searchable in the catalog, so you can do that. Or you can do the redeem and then input that redemption code, and you'll have access to it. Okay, it's time for our second activity. So get out menti.com again. You may have to refresh your browser. This time we're going to use code 630416. And we're going to really answer the question, how would you rate your school's engagement with industry and community? And so we'll transition so you can see it in real time. And as for the redemption code, you should already have this PDF in the chat. So if you just scroll up kind of to the beginning, you'll see that redemption. You can open that PDF and you'll see the redemption code right there. Okay, this is good. So the results are still coming in, but it looks like we have a majority in the section of low, 0 to 5 partnerships. The medium range is 5 to 10 partnerships, and it looks like we're gauging between the 20 to 30% range. And then high would be more than 10%, excuse me, more than 10 partnerships. And that's looking like it's about 21%. So right now, many of us are in the low category of 0 to 5. And that is okay, because guess what? You have time, and I'm here to help you get started and kind of give you resources on where to go. So thank you for participating in that activity. Again, we'll have one more to kind of just wrap that section up, and we will actually talk about now engagement. So I'll go back to the PowerPoint for us. Okay, so how can school districts really begin to engage industry and community? The first recommendation is create, because you have the time, create a work-based learning sub-team, or have a work-based learning coordinator at your school. But again, I'm not a big believer that everything has to be on one person's shoulders, so I love the team aspect. Because when you're here, you really gotta start analyzing, what are the needs of my school? What are the partnerships in my local school, and how can I use their help, and vice versa? So when you start thinking about identifying your resources, you start thinking, okay, do I have a nonprofit or a city group? Maybe I have a government entity near my school. It's thinking outside the box. I actually love this, because I get some comments that, you know, Chelsea, I only have a grocery store or a gas station. And when I hear that, I say, I'm here to help. So I will walk you through, and I will actually Google, and Google's my best friend. I like Googling your city and seeing what is around there. And sometimes we don't even think about what's there or think about our networking surrounding us. And so I would encourage you to think about that. I actually did this with an educator, and I noticed a local farmer's market in her area. And she was like, oh my goodness, I go there all the time and I didn't even think about that. And she was like, I didn't think about, you know, the municipal agencies. I have a fire department and a police office and a chamber of commerce. And she just hadn't thought about that. But sometimes you just need that thought partner. So I'm here anytime you need me. And so I would say, consider those local partnerships. Really, these links take you to the source, your workforce boards, your career techs. They even have a business industry entity that focuses on this. Your chambers of commerce really can help get you connected as well to various businesses, along with your trade associations. Trade associations are just now becoming familiar with ICAP. Some of them know about it, but I'm making my rounds so that, you know, they're curious to know, how do we continue to build our talent pipeline? So they're getting things ready so that they can have opportunities for your students. And then tribal nations, I can't stress that enough. If you have a tribal nation in your area, this link will take you to the current list for 2020 of who to reach out to at that tribal entity. Okay, so more things to do is, you know, develop your outreach methods. We have created for you a partnership letter and agreement, and it's customizable. You can put your student logo in it. The verbiage is already there. If you want to change it, that's great, but it's there for you if you need it. And then also a school partnership calendar. I love this because it's an annual calendar, being very thoughtful about activities you can incorporate in January and then all the way through December. And then once you start building your partnerships, you want to make sure you maintain those. So have that constant communication, especially right now, those who've already had work-based learning opportunities in their school. They were reaching out to me saying, how do we continue to have conversations with employers during COVID-19? So we'll touch base on that in a few minutes as well. And then last but definitely not least, always review and evaluate your partnerships and gauge how it's moving forward. So this tool right here, it's a design thinking template for business and community engagement. If you were in Marissa Lightsey's session on implementing ICAP, you saw this for college and career readiness / equity. So now you have two good resources for you to utilize. So this is really talking about what are your barriers to access. Maybe that's outreach, transportation, insurance, liability. And then you go through the stages of your problem. What's the problem you have in your school district? What are my root causes in step 2? Then 3 is kind of like that if-then statement, your theory of action. And I'm about to take you through an example. So that's why I'm going quickly through it. And then the 4th is kind of who do you need to get involved? What are your strategies you need to implement? And what are your goals? So that's actually look at this like a completed version. So this is a district example. Shout out to Atoka Public Schools. So they determined their problem of practice was lack of education for both the business and the school. They said in the root causes, they wanted to address education, time, and just general understanding of who are the key leaders they need to contact and be connected with. Their theory of action, I'm actually going to read this word for word because it's just so good. If we educate our businesses and community, then we will change how we are perceived, build active partnerships, and support the ICAP process from the school to the workforce. Their inputs, they realize, you know, we need our ICAP members. Maybe you need your work-based learning members to help incorporate all this. Their actions to take, they're going to record some commercials and they're going to share any of their resource docs or their presentations with surrounding school districts, which I love. Because there's no need to reinvent the wheel when we have so many good things happening. Just connect with your partners out there. And then for output, what strategies are going to create, really focusing on parent engagement, student achievement, and then partnering with our schools. They dived a little deeper and said they really want to explore a variety of career fields that ensure that They have careers that look like their students, that meet their students' backgrounds, their cultures, and their preference. And that's amazing because we want to ensure that we're reaching all students. And then what goals? They're short-term, communicate goals, market the message. Medium would be increasing that community buy-in. And then beyond 2 years, get businesses to provide those internships, mentorship programs to help produce quality workers for the future. So you've learned how. What are the steps that you can take? Step 1, communicate. How are you going to communicate this engagement plan? Step 2, know your role. Understand your roles and responsibilities in here. Step 3, time to implement. What's your if-then statement? And then step 4, what are the goals to get this accomplished? So this is okedge.com, your hub for college and career readiness. Focuses on parents and families, students, college and career readiness educators and K-12 educators, and of course, business and community. So if you haven't checked it out, many of these hyperlinks, this is the source that you can find them on. Okay, we're going to transition to our final activity for today. And this is really focused on how schools incorporate service or work-based learning. Really want to hear, what are your best practices? So your code this time is on menti.com, excuse me, is 581008. And so the question is, what best practices does your school implement for service or work-based learning? Gives you a moment to brag on your school for a little bit. And we're going to transition to real time so you can see some responses. And it's okay if you're not sure. I'm about to showcase some slides that will help give you some examples. Inviting community professionals into the classroom and in front of our students. Yes, that's very good. Oh, created a handbook for internships and engaged community partnerships. That's amazing. See, that would be someone to get connected with for a good resource. Okay, they have an internship program. They offer career readiness classes for special education. Awesome. And have we're too high to receive services. Okay. Further training. Gotcha. You have your career tech internship program. Very nice. Local charities. That's great. Touching base on the service learning aspect. Try to have students work with community workers from local areas and major cities surrounding. Very nice. Using your network right there. Oh, a seminar time where teachers work with small groups to counsel students. Amazing. Oh, you guys have so many, and I would want to stay here, but I want to make sure I have enough time to answer your questions. But thank you for addressing those. And that's just good, something fun to see while you're sitting in your chairs, but just to think about, because sometimes we don't know that we are doing great stuff until someone asks us, hey, what are you doing? So thank you for sharing. Okay, back to the PowerPoint. I'm not gonna go into these extensively, but I wanted you to have some slides on best practices. What I love about all of these hyperlinks, the majority of them are links to videos. So you can actually hear from the school district and you can hear from their students on how this event has really helped transform their lives. So you'll have ranging from Broken Arrow's apprenticeship program with Mullen Plumbing, which is amazing, something that's just now happened. They're one of the first to do that. Chelsea Public Schools, I really like this. They were inspired by a larger school districts doing their senior and junior conferences. And so they said, we maybe can't do it like that, but hey, we can do career fairs. And Fallon Wilson breaks it down very nicely of the first year and the second year and how you can implement that. A great service learning example is Balto Week with Edmond Public Schools. So even if I didn't get a chance to shout out your school district today, as my daddy would say, charge it to my head and not my heart. The second best practice for you today is just those senior conferences. So many of our school districts ranging from Sand Springs, Duncan, Ada, Pryor, Shawnee are doing amazing things on internships. So that's there for you. I really wanted to highlight Sapulpa Public Schools because they have a senior virtual day guide. And they actually did this as in their elective fair, but this guide kind of gives you an example of what you could do if you needed to transition your activities into a virtual space. And then some more resources. The last one, that virtual career learning, those were all the school districts that participated in the 2020 Oklahoma Career Exposure Week. So I'm very grateful. So I'm going to say their names because I got fond. I was able to connect with all their schools. Again, if I mess up the name, charge it to my head, not my heart. Deer Creek, Francois, Fort Supply, Ketchum, Pioneer, Olustee, Seminole, Sentinel, Tallahena, Quinton, Wayne, and Verdon. So those are just a couple of school districts that participated, and hopefully next year we'll have an even more extensive list. Okay, let's get into it. Hopefully you have seen this Return to Learn Oklahoma, a framework for reopening schools. I highly suggest and recommend that you utilize this along with your district plans as you are beginning those phases to reopen. In this, underneath the academics and growth section, we talked about how to modify service or work-based learning activities, how to strengthen industry and community partnerships, and then how to plan work-based learning opportunities when schools are open and operating. So just to cover them, when we're talking about modifying, you really want, I can't emphasize enough, having a work-based learning sub-team to help you get this done, to help think about who's gonna serve on that team, what are their roles, what are their responsibilities. Sample activities, I would say look at your current activities and really start discussing with your industry leaders, what will this look like in a virtual space if we have to go to that respect, and then what does it look like in a classroom setting. I would highly suggest, we say curriculum. When it comes to industry, they say training manuals. So if you need some resources, ask them, can I have access to your training manual so that my student who's doing that internship with you can read on that and take assessments, or what kind of project-based learning can they do for you in a virtual space. And then, of course, have a backup plan. Have a backup plan to your backup plan to your backup plan. It's just always good to do. So if we have intermittent closures, it could happen. We really want to make sure we're addressing those questions. What is the work-based learning activity packets that we're going to send home with our students? How is this going to be retrieved by the families and the students? How are employers going to know that your students have transitioned into the virtual space? How are you going to assess and monitor these activities? Because we really still want to ensure that rigor and quality is there for these work-based learning experiences. And then what guidance are you going to provide to students to navigate the digital platform? So if you didn't get a chance to see Karen Leonard's session on keeping students safe online through digital citizenship, she provides some very helpful tips. So I'd recommend that you watch that in the Whova app. Majority of the sessions have already been added into the Whova app. So check that out when you have an opportunity. When it comes to strengthening industry and community partnerships, again, really develop your plan. This is a good planning time. Use your partnership agreement and letter and really assess your current partnerships. Who do you need to connect with, and what does that look like in the future? And then I keep saying it because I can't emphasize it enough. Plan early for all of this. Look at your activities and start determining how can you transition these into a virtual environment. I tried to share some examples with you today, so hopefully that was beneficial. But just think through that, because you want to have that tangible plan in place. And if you need a thought partner, email me, let me know, and you'll get my contact information at the end. And when it comes to planning work-based learnings, consider these tips. And remember, you're not in this alone. As school districts are transitioning, and so are employers. We're all learning how to adjust and be ready and flexible at a minute's notice. So just know you're not alone. You want to ensure that you create a safe work environment. So if we're in session, that you follow those CDC guidelines when your students are going to those various job sites or career fields days. Make sure they're 6 feet away, make sure they have a mask. I mean, it's protecting them, it's protecting you. And then also keep your lines of communication, keep them open. Make sure that they know, students know what we're doing right now in this month of school, and if we transition, this is the activities that we expect to be completed and how you can do that. So when it comes to this, especially if we're in a virtual space, I have to encourage that you talk to your students and let them know, find a workspace in your home that's away from noise and that truly protects your privacy. If you're questioning and wondering, okay, where can I find those reporting, aspects, because maybe you see something and you have to report it. In Petra Woodard's session, again, she does talk about this more extensively, and she even gives you the direct link to that so that you have it. But just want to protect them and keep them healthy and safe, even in their home environment. And then again, communicate. I think they say that even in marriage. I'm not married, but I think they say that, communication is the key. We need to communicate with our students and let them know, communicate with our employers and families and let them know what the process is, how we're going to continue, because no matter what, learning must continue. I want to take a moment to just really say thank you. You all moved quickly and fastly to transition to a distance learning space. And if you don't hear it enough, thank you. You need to hear that. So we created a plethora of resources during that time. I also highly recommend at 10:30, Dr. Aaron Esfalt is having his distance learning, kind of navigating the uncertainty. So if you're still wondering how that works, attend his session. I really highly recommend that. And then also the College and Career Readiness team, we created a guidance doc really on how to keep your students college and career ready during distance learning. So this is a great resource if you haven't seen it. It is actually on sde.ok.gov/counseling. And you're able to also find various COVID-19 resources that's focused on academic, social emotional learning, what we call SEL, distance learning. And then also, not only are we in a time of dealing with a global pandemic, we're also in a time of social injustice. So on our website, we also have resources on equity, diversity, and inclusion that's applicable to students, educators, parents, and families. So I wanted to highlight some resources before we transition to our Q&A session time. This is the weareteachers.com, good resources for grades K through 5. You have tips for family, printable worksheets that you can have, virtual field trips. So this is a good website if you need to use it in your classrooms or use it in a virtual environment. Another resource I'd like to highlight that's for grades K through 12 is OERB Homeroom. They have virtual lesson plans, field trips, career curriculum, and they actually created this site just for when we went into a distance learning environment, and they're going to keep it open in case we do have those intermittent closures. They're even going to host some educator workshops, and I believe it's going to be in a virtual space. But if you have more questions to that, you can email teachers@oerb.com. And they even have individuals who can come to your school and teach this curriculum. And not only is the careers focused on oil and gas, you have careers that's focused like on history and STEM. So that's a good resource for you. Another resource I mentioned earlier, there is now a searchable tool for registered apprenticeships and internships provided by Oklahoma's Works. And this link will get you straight to it. So you're able to search by SOC code, which is called that standard occupation classification code. You can search by city and zip codes. So you may not see, as they're still building this, and this is coming from the Secretary of State, those registered apprenticeships and internship opportunities. So you may not see a plethora of there right now, but at least you see employers who are open to work-based learning and can be open to secondary opportunities. So just kind of take you through it. Say we want to search by zip code. We would do, I'm Yukonite, so you do 73099, and then I want to look to the Tulsa area, 74008. And then of course I hit internship, so you see which options you can choose. And then this is what a searchable results would look like for registered apprenticeships by zip code. So just kind of show you what it is. But again, that link will take you straight to it so you can start looking at it and navigating through the searchable tool. I have a couple of coming soons, exciting things happening for the state of Oklahoma. Hopefully you're familiar. We have 6 career fields, 16 career clusters, and 79 career pathways. For Oklahoma specifically, there's an anticipated shortage of workers for the energy industry, which is one of the largest industries in Oklahoma and one of the highest paid. So in collaboration with industry leaders, the State Department, and Oklahoma Department of Career and Technology Education, we are creating an Oklahoma's 17 career cluster, and it'll be called Get Into Energy. So you'll hear more about this, but I just wanted to be a first to let you know it's coming. Another thing that is coming by the Oklahoma History Center is what they're calling Oklahoma's Work online exhibit and career video library. This will be aligned to ICAP's awareness and exploration components, and will highlight a plethora of Oklahoma careers and industries, both from the past and present. If you're familiar with Oklahoma History Center's educational trunks, they actually were going to have an educational trunk on ICAP, this Oklahoma Works, but they quickly transitioned to make sure more access could be given to everyone, especially in the times that we're in. So it is on the way and it's coming. I wanted to share with you, just highlight what it'll look like on some of the topics and standards, really focusing on a lot of economics and Oklahoma history standards. But one topic would be career clusters, overview of major industries by region. So that's coming soon. Look for it. And that link I had on the previous slide takes you right to it, or where it's going to be. It probably isn't there yet. All right, so we're coming to the conclusion of this session because I really wanted to ensure I had enough time to answer any of your questions, but want to recap what we discussed about because we talked about a lot. Recapping that, you know, we want to make sure we're modifying our service or work-based learning activities. We want to continue to strengthen our industry and community partnerships, and we want to plan early for work-based learning opportunities. When it comes to some questions that I hear a lot, I just want to help break it down and hopefully give more guidance on it. First question, is it required for a school district to have an internship program? No. As I mentioned, there's 7 types of work-based learning, and internships is just one of those types that can meet the ICAP requirement. Do all my students have to participate in an internship program? Again, that's a no. If your school has an internship program, that's wonderful, but we recognize that it may not be feasible for all your students to participate in this type of experience. But remember, they have job shadowing, they have career fairs, they have mentorships, etc. Next set of questions, should service learning activities align to students' career pathway? No. Service learning is intended to address community needs at large, really ties into any career field, so it doesn't have to align to a student's career goal. When it comes to does work-based learning activities need to align with a student's career pathway? Yes, the work-based learning experience should be aligned to that student's career pathway. I wanted to make sure you know who your college and career readiness team is. Marissa Lightsey, she's the Executive Director of College and Career Readiness, and she oversees the ICAP implementation and career development. You have Petra Woodard, who is the Executive Director of Academic Counseling and Alternative Education, and she'll oversee transcript, course coding, any guidance like that, and also alt-ed guidance. And then, of course, myself, Executive Director of Work-Based Learning and Industry Engagement, and I oversee the service and work-based learning activities, and then how do school districts engage with industry, and vice versa, how do industry engage with school districts. I want to thank you all for attending, and I want to open it up now for any questions that you may have. Please type them in the Zoom chat. And again, those who are adding questions in the Whova app, I will personally respond at a later date.
Okay, Chelsea, we have a question from Letitia. With the ICAP, I taught ninth grade English last year. As an English teacher, do I implement these types of lessons into my curriculum, or is the ICAP a different course altogether?
Great question. So some school districts have like an ICAP course, but many of them implement it within their curriculum and their lesson plans.
Okay, we have a question from Christopher Smith. When is the virtual career learning event y'all hosted those schools who have given a shout out to? The best practices on slide 37.
Very good question. So Jamie's going to mute her mic when I have these questions, and so you won't get any feedback. So Christopher, that was a wonderful question. For the specific date for 2021 has not yet been determined. But once it does, we will blast it out in our newsletters. I'll make sure to put it in that work-based learning online platform and go from there. But you will be aware of it. What we did last year is I did Zoom links, and so educators were able to register in advance and had that Zoom link, and then I will moderate each session and connect students to those industry leaders. We do recommend, highly recommend, that you have some kind of webcam so that your students can see the industry leaders and vice versa. But it's just a very fun activity, but I will let you know, it's just the dates aren't there yet. You can also, as a resource, you can go to oklahomaworks.gov and you can actually Google the Oklahoma Career Exposure Week, and I should have put the link in here, but it'll tell you all about it, and that will be a resource to let you know when it's coming as well, but no dates determined as of yet. Good question.
Okay, another question. Do you have specific resources for students that have IEPs?
Oh, that's an excellent question. So our special education department, I work heavily with Lori Chestnut, and yes, she has resources already available. So I would recommend that you go to sde.ok.gov, and you can either search for special education, or you can, yeah, that would be the best. Search for special education, and she has specifically sections that talk about ICAP and work-based learning in relation to students with disabilities on IEPs, et cetera. So she's a great resource. If you want to get her contact information, you can search on the directory on our State Department website, or just put your email in chat, and I'll make sure you get connected with her.
Okay, another question is, could you please repeat the course codes that they, do they all count towards the school report card?
Very good question. So yes, I'll repeat that. For internships, it is, the first course is 2790. That's internship 1, and that's the code you use for our juniors. 2791 is internship 2, and that's the code you use for our seniors. And yes, that does count towards the post-secondary opportunities indicator in the report card.
Okay, another question is, what newsletter? Is there an ICAP newsletter?
Oh, that's such a good question. Yes, actually there is a college and career readiness newsletter. So if you went to Marissa Lightsey's session, she actually gave you the link to the newsletter so you can get signed up. You can also go to SDE, our SDA website, and there should be a link that says you want to sign up to newsletters, and you specifically can select the college and career readiness newsletter or all newsletters that you may want to get access to. Very good question. Are there any more questions for today? And again, that's okay if you don't have any. Feel free, all those links on the College and Career Readiness team I shared has our direct link to our email. Like many of you, we are working from home. So if you try to call my office, unfortunately, I have rolled it over, so I'll still get that. But the best way and the fastest way to get to me is shoot me an email. Any more questions? Okay, it looks like we have answered all the questions that were given. Again, I want to thank you so much for attending the session, ICAP Service Learning versus Work-Based Learning. The recording should be in the Whova app at the close of this conference, and also your PD certificate. We dropped it in the chat, but it's also in the Whova app for you. I want to wish you all a wonderful school year. Again, know that you're not alone. We are here for you and with you on anything that you may need. I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye. Did we stop recording?